o'clock, so we will call the meeting to order. We'll take a little sidestep from the agenda just to present this achievement. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards awards points to school board members for their participation in various seminars, the convention in January, and Cindy has achieved level 1 for Region 3, so she's got a nice certificate and a pin. So congratulations. They ordinarily give these at the regional meeting, but because the meeting was virtual this year, you're getting it here.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
We will move. Everybody knows also that Sue won her election on Tuesday night. And not only is that Region 3 director, I think now because she's worked her way up, she's in line to be president of the WASB starting in January.
Right after the convention.
So then we will move on to business and the revenue limit worksheet for 2021 and to approve the tax levy for 2021.
Okay, the highlights on the revenue limit worksheet. Line 2, the upper box. The upper box is all information based off of last year's numbers. They just transferred over. Line 2 is actually down here, the 557. That's on. Ooh, I got it.
Hello, Dave.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
We can hear you. We just started with the revenue limit worksheet, which I guess you don't have in front of you, so you'll just have to listen carefully.
Very good.
Okay, so our 3-year rolling average for 2017, 18, 19 was 557 students. Our 3-year rolling average for 18, 19, and 20, which is our third Friday in September count, was 548. That's a decrease of 9 students, which you can see down below. We have $99,151 in declining enrollment exemption. The 2 areas for declining in 2020, I would say, is if you look back in the yellow box under 2020, the summer FTE, we received no credits for summer school enrollment because we had it virtually, we didn't have it in session. Typically pick up a couple of students with summer school. We did in 18 and 19. You have to go back to 2017 where we picked up only 1. So we didn't pick up any students for our efforts for summer school. Summer school, you figure out how many hours the kids are actually in session. There's a formula, then they equate it out and they tell you which we end up getting for a student count in that area. Also, we have some students for this fall who have opted for homeschooling. If they're remote learning, we get credit for them being our students, but if they are truly homeschooled, then they do not count on a roll. So I expect in 2021, some of the homeschooling students to come back to our facilities for education in the future. But between the 3-year rolling average for 18, 19, 20 and the 17, 18, 19, it's a difference of 9. The state holds you harmless for that drop, and so the multiplication out there increases our revenue by $99,151. It's the state's way of letting you drop down easy when you have declining enrollment. I expect that'll bump up next year. Then we have the property values as of October 15th when the Department of Revenue became final. It's for all the property within the district. We have $1,526,445,030 in total taxable property within our school district boundaries. And that's up about 4.5%.
That's not what you thought it was going to be?
It was a little bit off from what we thought it was going to be. We had, what did we have? 1,525 million, so we were off by 1 million when we were estimating it. Second page, you have your base revenue from last year from 1920 per your student count from the 3-year rolling average from the previous year. Base revenue per membership was $10,837.82. The state increased it in the second year of the biennial budget by $179 per pupil. So it's $11,016.82 per pupil. We have 548 students. Multiply that out, it's $6,037,217. That number drops down to line 9, and then it's added with line 10. Line 10 is all of the other exemptions in which you can claim. So you have $2 million on line 10A. That's our non-recurring operating referendum that was passed in 2018. This is the final year for that number being there, so that will expire. Then you have a 10B, you see the same exact calculation as on the first page, 99,151 for declining enrollment. Our energy efficiency project, 112,180 is the amount we're allowed to claim in taxes for those projects, because that's the amount, the difference between what we save in the project cost and the energy savings within that area. Adjusted for refund or rescinded taxes, we have $3,370 of amount that we weren't able to collect. Prior to open enrollment, they make an adjustment. Open enrollment goes all the way until the last day of school. If a kid moves in or out in their open enrollment right after the last day of school, they make an adjustment. So that number is not always finalized until the very end, so it's $54,397. And then we have private school voucher aid deduction of $16,600. That is only, it's flow-through money. We'll collect it from the taxpayers and then it goes to the private schools. So that money is not, it's earmarked special, $16,600, we'll collect it, but we only can use it in one area, and that's to pay it right back out. So in adding the $6,037,217 with the $2,285,698, we end up with $8,322,915. And then line 12A is the amount of state aid we receive, which is $6,467. Plus there's also 12C, the exempt computer aid, $2,260, and the state aid for exempt personal property. And I don't know how the state figures that number out, but it's $30,860. And to tell you, the computer aid stays consistent now. It used to fluctuate, but now it stays consistent. That's the property value of all computers purchased within the district, like copiers that small businesses may have and items like that. So you end up with $8,283,328, and that drops down to line 14. They have you break out line 14 into your general operations and your non-referendum debt. So that is the $131,945 for the energy efficiency, which has 3 years remaining, Carl?
Yep.
Yes, 3 years remaining. So that $131,945, they're saying you have to pay that bill first, and then you can operate with the rest of the money at your expense. Line 15A, $1,811,813. That is how much we will pay off on the new addition for this year in interest and principal for the year. Last year was 1.9. Yeah, so it's come down because we owe less on the property than we did in the past. And then our community service, which is Fund 80, is outside the revenue limit. It's at $20,000, and we use that for things that the whole community can use, like the Eco Lab, community classes, anything where anyone from the community can benefit from. So the amount that we're allowed to set the tax levy at is $10,115,141. Our levy rate will be $6.62. I was estimating it at $6.60. I was off by 2 cents, so it's $6.62. So a decrease of 37 cents from last year.
Kyle, that was a decrease of 37 cents, right?
Correct, a decrease of 37 cents, Dave. Right.
Thank you.
So that's a good thing for the taxpayer.
Any other questions?
So people ask, how does this compare to everybody else?
Compared to the state,
No,
where
compared to
I'll walk you all the way
north
through.
to south in the middle.
The state average is over $10, and so we're at $6.60, so we're under that. We're lower than Sturgeon Bay, but we're much higher than Gibraltar. Gibraltar has the
Lowest in the state.
lowest in the entire state because they're most property rich, and it's based on how much property you have how much property value you have behind each student in your school. So Gibraltar has the same number of students as us approximately. They have a little more property value behind each student. Southern Door and Sturgeon Bay have more students, but their property value doesn't, they don't have as much per student backing each student. So, and that's why we get the less in the state aid. And the formula's been around since 1993, and they've tried changing it 10 or 12 times, and the legislators haven't figured it out. It's because
We're still working on it.
they always will. And there's winners and losers in the formula in different areas, and if you change one, you make a different group the winners and losers. And what people do is say, oh yeah, that'll work, and then they look at their own finances and say, well, it doesn't work for me, and so they tell the legislature, don't vote for that or don't do that, and then nothing gets done.
I remember Gary Mize telling us years ago, and this is 10 years ago, this isn't going to happen anytime soon because there are more that benefit from the current structure than don't.
Correct. The last district I was with received 2/3 of the money from the state, just like the farmer is supposed to, so they would never want to change because it works out beautifully for them. They had like a $3 million budget, they got $2 million from the state. So they were plenty happy with that arrangement. And there's many districts like that.
No matter how good those representatives represent us, they fight an uphill battle.
I've always told people not to complain because how many of live in a community where half the property is owned by people that don't even live here? And so therefore they're paying the bills for it, and they're happy with bills for it, so just realize.
Well, it's difficult.
When I'm on the NWTC board talking to people from the other parts of that district, they look at our county and say, your taxes are real pricey. Our tax rate appears much cheaper than Green Bay or a lot of places.
Right, we're at 662 and people are double ours, it's hard to argue.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if we can be, I guess if there are no other questions, or we can begin with the motion and then take additional thoughts and questions. You have in front of you a paper that Carl printed out, and that's how the motion needs to read. So if someone wants to read those words exactly with the dollar
Do you want me
amounts.
to go over a few parts of the budget?
Would you like Mr. Lukey to go over a few parts of the budget before we do that?
I'd like to share a couple of things, okay?
Okay.
If you go to page 2 on revenue, like the 8th item down, admissions, we set that at 1,000 this year. In the past, we've had it at 7,500 because we're having much fewer ball games and events here. If you look at the rental, $980, that's the land rent, in case you're wondering. Open enrollment receipts, we have set at $1 million. Last year was 1.4, but with the change with remote learning and people picking what they're doing, we're being conservative with that number. And then if you go almost 10 down from the bottom, where per pupil aid is $350,000. That's also a conservative number. Last year was 412,000. So
Wait,
we're
is per pupil
aid.
is 200,000?
No, it's 350,000. That's varsity.
Oh.
The one right below it,
Where are you
350.
in this?
No, I'm on your budget sheet now.
Oh.
Your big budget packet
I guess the lines are wrong.
on page 2.
And
You want a ruler?
No,
Okay,
it's
so
just,
that's
it's just
how I
off a
do
little
it.
bit, it's just bumped up a little bit, so it
Okay.
looks like per pupil.
Yeah, the per pupil aid, what I'm really concerned about the per pupil aid at 350 isn't this year, but next year the state will have set their biennial budget, and that's the one where it's categorical aid, and it's very easy for legislators to cut that out of the budget. And so if they touch that, that's going to be a huge number for us to worry about. And the state budget has to have adjustments within the K-12 budget because 30% of the state budget is K-12 education. And if they're going to straighten out their budget, it's going to have to be on someone because right now they got more COVID expenses.
I was going to say, typical government, but COVID doesn't fit into the plan, doesn't fit into the ordinance. I mean, it's a totally a different world, and they're trying to run it off of a normal world financially, and it doesn't work. Does anybody there in the higher echelons realize that these formulas are big, are built for a normal working school year. And not one riddled with what's going on.
Right, so that's what worries me about next year, not this year, but next year. Yeah, and who knows what's gonna happen, because they do have a rainy day fund at the state level, but I don't know how deep it is and how much they're gonna use, because I think COVID would be a rainy day expense, but I still think they're gonna be short, and I think K-12 education will have to bear part of it. We have to afford 30% of their budget. We'll have to. If you go to page 3, you'll see rural school grants at $60,901. That is almost twice what we normally would receive, because Carl did some homework and found out that 4 years ago, we didn't receive our money, so he filed a claim and worked on it and got our money back from 4 years ago.
Wow, the state gave money back. It
This is
was-
federal.
Federal.
Federal
He went to
gave
the
money back.
feds, he went all the way to the feds and got it. So Carl did his homework and got it.
Good job.
And then we go on to expenses. And what do I want to highlight on that? Not a lot. It's pretty straightforward. If you're on page 16, item 10E 800 310 214 health services, 60 grand. That's the full-time nurse for this year. So in the past we had 4 hours of service, now it's 40 hours a week, so we're estimating $60,000 in that expense there, so that's an area that we increased. And on page 17, the second one from the top is $68,000. That's the school resource officer, and we're in the second year of a 3-year agreement with the Sheriff's Department for the SRO. And if you remember when we made the agreement, the second year is less than the first year, and the third year is less than the second year, and that had something to do with the union agreement they have with the sheriff's deputies, and I would expect it to go the other way, but it's not. So in 3 years or 2 years from now, I'd expect it to go up, but right now it's where it's at. And then you turn to page 18, the third number from the top is the interpay services for $800,000. That's the open enrollment for out of our district. That's the expense going out.
Which numbers, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Page 18, the third number from the top, $800,000. That's the open enrollment out, because we have about 125 students open enrolling in, yet we have about 100,000 or 100 students open enrolling out. So that's the estimate there. And lower on the page, 10E 800 411 253 700 general supplies, 125,000. That we have, that's where all of our COVID-related expenses are for all our equipment, safety, plastic, sanitizer. Last year, that number was $15,000. And so the line item went from $15,000 up to $125,000. And then if you go to page 20 for expenses, well, revenue for Fund 27. Fund 27 is special education. The handicap aid is $334,854. That is for sure firm number at this time. The other ones are estimates. That is a for sure known number at this time.
Actually, that may be a little bit low too, because the state DPI, when they're giving us those numbers, they calculate low just in case, so they don't have overpayments. So we may get a little bit more than that, but that's the figure that I got from DPI at this point in
Yeah, so
time.
as far as we know, it's specific.
It's that number, but they estimate a little bit low.
In Fund 27, the revenue and expenses always have to even out in the end. That's why there's the deposit from Fund 10 to transfer. If you go to page 25, Fund 39, you'll have the property tax of $1,811,813. That is for the debt for this building, the new addition. And underneath it, you'll say interest on investments. There's $2,000 there. That interest has to go for debt payment only. You can't use it for anything else. Can't go to enhance the project. It has to go for paying down the loan out on the building.
until your loan is paid off.
Right.
Once, if you have any interest left over after your loan is paid off, then you can use it, give it back to the taxpayers or what have you, but until it's paid off, it has to be used for that.
And then under Fund 39 expenses, you'll see the expenses are $2,194,579, but the revenue for Fund 39 is $1,813,813, so it's a difference of $380,765. The difference is because taxes are on a calendar year and we're on a school year, and the loan's on a calendar year, so we collected that last year, that $380,765 to pay off the debt this year, because we go from July 1 to June 30th. And then you go down to Fund 49 revenues. The construction project gifts, $668,000. That's the donation from Thermotronics. They made their first donation, they divided it into 3 sections, and they made a donation in March of 19. They made a donation in March of 20, and they'll make their third donation in March of 21. And then the final fund, Fund 49 expenses, the building construction, $18,294,151. We have a payment schedule from Myron for paying off the building as we go, or the project as we go. Carl, is there anything else we should point out? Or is that kind of the budget, the highlights,
The only thing I would say is Fund 50, we left the numbers that we had because we really don't know what we're gonna have between revenue and expenses, because right now, he's getting, everything is coming from Fed through the school or the summer lunch program, which is what everything that we gave, that we sent out for lunches and breakfast during the first shutdown. They extended that until the end of June, so Casey is getting money from the Fed for paying for school lunches and stuff like that. Right now, they are not charging anybody for lunches except for adults. Nothing is being charged for kids' lunches because it's all coming from the federal government. So we just didn't know where to go with that, so we left the revenues and expenses as they were, because we just don't know how that's all going to play out.
Dave, I know you're kind of handicapped not having this information in front of you. Did you have any questions? Dave?
No, sorry, my phone is moving and stuff here. So no, honestly, laid out pretty well. One question on the COVID cost, was it 125 or 145?
125, 125,000.
All right.
And we've spent 101,000 so far.
But our expenses and that have dropped significantly over the last couple of weeks.
Say
Right.
that again, Carl?
We spend 101,000 right now on COVID-related items, not including the school nurse. Most of that 100,000 was spent within the first, leading up to school and within the first 3 weeks after. Since then, the spending on that has been a lot, much less.
And we have hand sanitizer on site, we have all the plastics, we have the masks, we've got, we got cleaning supplies. We're in pretty good shape with our supplies. If people are wondering, oh, you running out or not? We're not running out, we got it, so, yeah.
And you set the budget up in a way, Kyle, that you can easily glean where those COVID expenses are. I mean, you don't have them all under one
We're keeping a
line,
spreadsheet of it so that if we get the ability to get reimbursed for a grant of some sort, we can
Right.
submit it, absolutely. Yep.
I did get an email today regarding a federal grant that Wisconsin has received for mental health services for kids. Not the same pot of money that we were working with, Cindy, when we wrote that original grant. This is a new pot of money. It's coming from the feds to the state, and it's designed primarily for personnel, school psychs, school social workers, school counselors. There's not a lot of detailing out yet. There will be more, but it looks like an opportunity.
I will say one thing on that note, Sue, if you look on page 2, about 2/3 of the way down where it says mental health grant,
Yes,
that is at 80,000 right now because we have carryover from last year.
okay,
When everything shut down, they weren't spending as much, weren't, doing what they normally were doing, so we do have carryover money in that fund right now, plus our regular, what we get granted each year, right?
thank you.
Anything else?
Just an observation, have you ever counted up how many accounts you have?
Well,
For a $10 million
Well, and-
operation, you've got more accounts than Carter's got.
well, but to see the reason for that, Jerry, if you look at the account, especially in Fund 10, and you got 10E, and then it changes, 100, 200, 300, 400, 800, I have to split everything out, because when I report for federal, I have to split it out by school. So 100 is preschool, 200 is elementary, middle school, high school, and district. Before, we only had everything was under 800. But with the school level reporting that I have to do now, so I know exactly what's going into each school, I had to set up account numbers for each separate school. So that's why there are so many account numbers.
You must have over 300.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, they made them bust it up into 3 from 1. Well, district was separate, but yeah, the elementary, middle school, high school is all K-12, and now they tell them you gotta split up.
You gotta
So
split
it's
it
the
up
same
now.
people saying, you gotta reduce your costs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're playing their rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice.
In healthcare, we call it Medicare.
If there's nothing else, if somebody wants to read this motion that Carl presented exactly as it's printed on the sheet of paper.
Go ahead, so go for it.
I'll go for it. Motion to approve the 2020-2021 tax levy at $10,115,141 with $8,151,383 in general fund, Fund 10, $131,945 in non-referendum debt service fund, Fund 38, $1,811,813 in referendum-approved debt service fund, Fund 39, and $20,000 in community service fund, Fund 80.
Second.
Okay, are there any other discussion points or questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we will move on to adopt the final budget for the year 2020-21.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 revenue and expense budget as presented.
Second.
Okay, Dave, so that was a motion to approve the 2021 revenue and expense budget as presented. Is there there was a second?
Yes.
Yep, so second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then, in our packet, we have this letter from the Henry S. Baird Lodge. I'm not familiar with that group, but I think it's attached to one of the churches. And they are donating to the school 2 checks of $1,250 each. And just for the benefit of anybody listening, they say, in an effort to minimize cross-exposure by sharing equipment, we have been told there might be a need for additional equipment for recreational activities. And that might be a good use for the funds, or perhaps the funds can be used to provide something fun for the kids and staff when things get tough. That too might be a good use for the funds, whatever you think might help. So I guess we will look to we're going to
Accept the donation.
accept that donation. And then I suppose we can have some discussion on what to happen with it. So first, can I have a motion to accept the donation from the
I
Baird
move we
Lodge?
accept the donation from the Masonic Lodge according to their stipulation.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So thank you to that group for that nice donation. Do we want to discuss where that might go now or roll that into staff challenges?
Yeah, I think that would be good to roll it into staff challenges.
We'll roll that discussion into staff challenges, knowing that it won't just be for staff. And then we have the school calendar for the year 2021-22.
We discussed it last week at the meeting. I put it in the backside of my Friday flyer so the entire staff received it. I didn't get much feedback from staff. I had one person not happy that there was the day before Thanksgiving wasn't an off day. I didn't want to have a day there because I didn't want to go into that week of June 13th. So that was kind of give and take because of the late start of September 7th. We're hopeful to do it. We don't have any half days built in this calendar, which is better for transportation and for feeding the kids. So, yeah, and I think some people like to have the spring break back in this calendar.
I heard from several that they would, rather than going to June 13th, why not eliminate spring break?
So, I mean, no one came and told me that.
So I think it's a horse apiece.
Isn't the spring break kind of the caveat of the band and,
That's one reason. Band probably will go on a trip this spring because they were supposed to go.
this spring?
They were supposed to go in 20. They didn't. They'll probably try and reschedule for 22, spring of 22. And Mr. Hilbert also has his trip planned for the 8th grade. They would be up typically this year, but they're typically on an even year rotation normally. So we're going to end up on 2 trips, and parents are going to have to choose which one or both to send their kids on it, depending when they're
Was it
scheduled.
canceled last year, or did they isn't?
He didn't go in 20. He didn't go in 20 in
19.
19.
I mean, the even would have been this.
Yeah, he didn't go and band didn't go, so they're both on hold,
Canceled.
right? But we want to get one on even year, one on odd. They're gonna have to both go the same year, get then so they can get off filter.
So any kids miss out the opportunity for that because of that? Because I know when, like, some kids can actually do it twice because it's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
Right, some get a double shot.
They could if they wanted, but I mean. is
He's
that-
gonna open it up to the freshmen who haven't gone. I think he's gonna have everyone covered then going. And the band likes to go twice, so you can either go as a freshman, sophomore, or junior, senior. I could see some freshmen picking Mr. Hilbert's trip this time because they get to go on that and then pick up the band when they're older. Unless they're really in the band and just want to skip the Washington. They're both valuable trips, so what do you do? Sooner or later, we gotta get, there's only so many trips you can go on. I mean, parents gotta make choices. But it's one way we're trying to get it. So it would be nice to have spring break to get one of those trips in during that week. But those trips will come back before you yet.
So we have snow days built into the calendar.
5.73, oh.
So I didn't confirm this, I just heard this about a couple of times from about different school districts. If they don't use their snow days, they lock them off at the end of the year.
You can do that if you want to. I'd like to have them in there in case we need them.
Right.
Because no one wants to have June 6th be the last day and then say, oh, 7th we're going, the 8th we're going, the 9th we're going, every time it snows, you
Right.
add one.
So we could revisit that after the snow season.
Or you,
and how the school
or you
year
could
is
make
going.
it part of the motion tonight and say we're gonna, if we don't use 5.73, we'll end earlier. You can do that right tonight, rather than revisit it again, because then you say any unused snow days will be deducted off the end of the calendar.
I agree with Lisa's observations about, I think many people would rather be out of school earlier instead of sitting at home watching the snow or the rain or whatever happens in that week in March.
if we did that with the snow days, we'd accomplish two things. We'd make sure those classes got their trips, band and 8th grade, 9th grade, or whatever grades.
The Washington DC trip.
And we'd be giving something a little back to the staff. That would say, maybe you won't have to go until June 12th.
We could go longer too.
And we had a blizzard of 21.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
Right.
Snow is, I mean, I think that's a good question.
Well, snow is, I mean, if you can't give them, you can't give them,
Right, but I
you
mean,
can.
it's kind of a, that would be a good idea, I think would be a good idea, because it is kind of late into, into the year.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, if
I know
that's
people are excited this year,
middle of May,
middle of May,
right?
and,
When's the demolition scheduled?
The
So we're outta here.
last day we can actually physically occupy the building is June 7th. Then we have to be out, and then they start prepping it for demolition.
But June 7th of 21.
June 7th of 21, we're, yep, this next June 7th, we're on that building 100%.
You probably need some extra days to evacuate.
Well, that's why we're getting out in May this year, and yeah, absolutely. We're going to be moving a lot of furniture in May of this year, but this is for May of 22, or spring of 22. That's why we started on September 7th, to give the construction, everything, an extra week to finish up. And I'm okay with, if you do that with snow days, that's fine.
It's just a thought.
It's kind of a good compromise. Gets you your spring break for those that like spring break, and it gets you a little bit earlier. We'll use a couple first. I can't imagine not using a couple. But
not for snow, maybe cold.
ice, snow, whatever it
Whatever,
is.
winter weather. Not
You know, we had a pipe break 2 years
Breakdowns.
ago, right?
Snow days are multi.
Yeah, I mean, we had a pipe break, 2 years ago, and we took a nice day off, and,
Just one.
Well, can we just make the, like you said, make the motion and give you the options for the admin team, and if the year is such that they can take some days and it wouldn't screw up the schedule, let's do that. And if something goes wrong with water and building problems, then they don't. Is that, leave it on them?
sounds good to me.
Sounds like a motion.
Is that a motion?
If
Carl, can
Carl's
you-
off my rambling, yes.
I have no idea what he said.
He said to approve the calendar.
Calendar
and
as
let him
presented
give
in
the superintendent
Lock
the
Off
option
snow
of using
days
the
that's
snow.
not
With the option of taking the unused snow days off the end.
Yeah.
Correct.
Got that.
And that's up to the superintendent.
I'll second that.
We'll give Carl a second to.
Now I
get
feel the
it
pressure
down.
on snow days of driving around, you know? Less than a day of fishing in June, you know? I mean,
That's right. You can always go around, pick kids up on the way to work.
Yeah.
Oh, and then it's still.
I know, that's loud.
Wisconsin.
You know, the schedule will only work if people take their flu, their COVID-19 shot. If they don't, they're going to be back to normal. None of us ever been any discussion about making those things.
Do you have it, Carl?
Yep.
Could you read it back?
Motion by Kakmaransky with a second by Today to approve the 2021-2022 school calendar as presented, with option to end year earlier with unused snow days.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So the staff will all be praying for no snow days, and Mr. Lupe will have extra pressure on snowy mornings.
No extra pressure, Kyle, make good decisions.
I always go for my morning drive, it's always nice.
You may want to buy a big snow blower to drive the county.
Then, out of the last meet and confer, it came a discussion that, you know, maybe staff are experiencing lots of different challenges and all different things from their homes to school. So we have that, and then possibly how can we show appreciation or recognition to them. nobody, I don't know who's the computer, so I don't know how you want to start that discussion. I went out to the internet looking to see what schools or businesses might be doing to recognize their staff during this time, and I sent that document. It's just some idea joggers. So I don't know how you want to start the discussion about talking about the challenges they're having or how to appreciate them. Mr. Lutke did give us a sheet with some ideas from the administrative team.
We met today and we're scratching our heads just like you are, thinking, okay, what can we do for them? And, you know, it's difficult, so we came up with some ideas and I thought I'd share it with you guys.
Well, I did watch that video that you suggested, Lisa, and I certainly had a world of empathy for that teacher. And I suspect that some of our teachers have the same feelings. What I was a little frustrated with on that video is that I didn't see any suggestions for remedies. Obviously, we can't get rid of COVID. We're not doing a very good job as a state right now. But I would like to have heard some ideas from that teacher about what would be helpful. And I know, Cindy, you've got a few ideas at the Meet and Confer, but I guess what I'm looking for, and I know we have a few ideas here, but what are the teachers, and not only teachers, but all of our staff, because they're all dealing with this issue. But what would help them, I guess, is what I want to know. I want to have some data before we decide to spend $1,250 or whatever we're going to spend on this. I'd like to hear from them what their concerns are, what they see as remedies.
Well, I think their overriding thing was time, right?
Well, and Vicki, you were with me during that meeting, and we didn't get to the point of having a conversation about any kind of token, or it was basically as they were talking about their experiences, I had this thought that, you know, here it is truly, and we've talked about this as a board, this is a new time and our teachers are experiencing something they never anticipated experiencing. And as I was sitting there listening to the two teachers talk, it was clear to me that we as a board, and I'll just own it, I was not aware of the magnitude and the different kinds of issues that our teachers are experiencing. And I too watched that video that you sent us, Lisa, the YouTube video, and then I went back in their archives and watched the whole board meeting from it was a school in Indiana. And they didn't have any, I don't think there's a canned response or a canned answer, Sue, in terms of what to remedy, but I appreciate the fact that we do need to hear from the teachers.
Right.
And the students.
And the rest of the staff.
Sorry?
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so I have some comments. One is, now, and I agree, but I think the two comments, the admin team, talking about their mental health, how they're doing, checking on them daily. I would ask, and hopefully Adam and Kyle and everyone, and even Carl, when you're walking through the building, those are things that you may have already been doing, but make sure you're doing them now. So a lot of the things I read from Lisa's were, that's what I think our admin team day to day, how you doing the things. If someone looks miserable, talk to them. Obviously, I believe Kyle and you guys do that, but make sure we're doing that.
We are, I can tell you, all of us are walking the hallways more than normal. I always try and go out during a passing period, but then you kind of wander different parts of the building. We are out the doors too, we're going, but people will tell you they're fine. Okay, you ask me how I'm doing, I'll tell you I'm doing fine. I'll tell you tomorrow, the next day, and every day, I'll tell you I'm fine, I am. But everyone says they're fine, and that's not true for all 100 plus people we have on staff. But it's such a range, and so I haven't figured out, I haven't seen any other school that has an answer for this either. We're all struggling with it, and you can't tell who's struggling at what level either always, so I don't know.
So if I may hear my second point, and this is some homework by Kyle and Carl, if anyone else thinks it's worth looking into. I think it's important that we see how the referendum does, so that gets approved. Can we look at the budget and find out, as an example, maybe we give every teacher or their classroom a boost in their budget. One time here, it's a one-time thing, I'm making up numbers, but maybe the second grade or fifth grade gets an extra, I don't know the numbers, right, but maybe $1,000. We give it to the teaching team, and say, you guys do what's best for your class. Now, so we gotta crunch the numbers, we gotta see where the budget is, but like Gary, we comment, no one's gonna give us money, it's COVID, and we're gonna make it through, and I think luckily the school had some, things available to at least to study. So that, and then now we would need some more creative ideas for, the maintenance staff and support staff, and maybe we find, look at the numbers and give some additional budget to the kitchen and say, buy something that you guys would like to have to help your day, but wouldn't typically be in the budget. So is that something anyone would want to, letting Kyle do more work after the referendum comes out? Because if it's not approved, it's going to be very much harder. I mean, we have more challenges ahead of us, but if it is, maybe we pursue that, or there's no interest out there.
I think that's a good idea. I don't think we can look at that right now, as you said. But I do think the school board needs to come up with some ways to recognize the efforts of the staff that don't have to cost a lot of money. Mr. Lukey, you said one of the staff people told you that they talked to some staff and they appreciated the motion that Jerry made last meeting
Yeah, I was
as a
told,
recognition.
yeah, Diane Genquine told me that every staff member she's talked to who has viewed last board meeting was appreciative of Jerry's statement and the fact that the board all echoed what he said. So that went a long way. I also looked on their website and I saw 38 people viewed the meeting, so it didn't hit our whole staff because we have over 100 people on staff, but it did hit a portion, so it's good. I don't know, yeah, exactly. So and they're not looking for you know, the two teachers that were meeting first said, no, we're not looking for compensation. They didn't say what they were looking for. They couldn't put a finger on it either, you know. They said that was in fact, one of them said that's the farthest thing from our mind.
Has WASB looked at this and said, here schools, here's something you can do to help your staff?
Not specifically, no. They're looking at certainly, you know, the mental health issues that we're dealing with not only staff, but parents and students as well. And providing all of the legal kinds of remedies and insurance remedies and leave remedies, those kinds of things. But I'm wondering if someone like a Melissa Andrews might be helpful here for staff. You know, I guess if I were a teacher or any staff member here, I probably would be hesitant to go to you, Kyle, and say, you know, I'm really anxious, I'm stressed, and so on, because you're my boss.
Exactly.
But Melissa Andrews is not their boss, and yet she is a person who is knowledgeable of community resources and is able to provide directions for staff who might be dealing with a whole bunch of issues, school-related or non-school-related. I mean, there may be some things in their home life that are stressing them out. But, you know, that may be an option. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
I think there's two issues here. There's the issue of acknowledgement in holding our staff up, whether it's a cash stipend or it's a gift card or it's just a way to go staff. There's that issue of just acknowledgement. And then there's the issue of giving staff voice if there's over the struggles that they're having.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, am I seeing
No, I
that
think that's
correctly?
right on.
I think you're in an area, you're into the area of culture. And you're going to rely totally on the culture of the organization now to get through a lot of this stuff. So what you're doing, going around and recognizing people, asking them how are things going, and the other big line to use is, what can we do to help you? That's a really powerful term. I think with staff, whether it's here or whether it's in a factory or a hospital or wherever, what they want to know is that the top dogs recognize and fully understand the issues that they're going through. Not necessarily that you have a solution for them, but that you understand their opinion. And you're open to suggestions, because the front line always knows better than the people in the offices. I used to always tell our staff, my job is to stay out of the way, because you know how to, you know where there's an issue, how to solve it. I don't, I'm not a person, I'm not a person. So in the same way, it's very similar. And so now you're going to really have to rely on the culture of your position. At the same time, I was thinking about this afternoon, I was listening to them. I think it's time for you to form, and this is just a suggestion, some type of blue ribbon committee, because you're going down a pathway that nobody has been before. And I think we're getting, does this bother anybody that I can't talk?
No, you're fine.
No, it's good.
Good. Because I think
Hey, sorry, I gotta drop off. Very important discussion.
Bye, Dave.
I think we're really close to the time now where you're going to try to put 10 pounds of potatoes now in an 8-pound bag, because time is, in normal circumstances, you always have a 10-pound bag ready for your 10 pounds of potatoes. But so many things have happened now. So I think we got to recognize that. And I don't know what the solutions are, but the staff. So I would pull together a group of, you want to appoint staff, have ongoing discussions about this. I don't know if I want to get weekly or bi-weekly. But so that line of communications is always open, and you're listening to them and recognizing them and giving them credit, like, hey, that's a good idea, let's try that. Or they have to also expect, you may say, I don't agree with that, I'm not going to go that way, but because you're the boss and that's where the stuff. I would think it'd even be valuable for the school to have some parents who are really getting hit hard with this, because they have a full-time job, or they got a job at someplace, and there's no babysitting. And there's no YM. I don't think the YM. I don't know. The Boys and Girls Club isn't open right now, so there are no avenues. There's not that big, cadre of. So have them in the discussions along with parents who's, they're at a stay-at-home mom or dad, and it's not a big issue with them. So you get all the voices, and I think that's because there's no right or wrong thing for this. There's no book out there, and there's no education course that says this is what you do.
And Jerry, I would add one more group to that, students.
Yes.
We need to engage students in this process. They're the ones that are being affected primarily.
I thought you need to have some students, probably juniors or seniors or something like that. But anyway, somebody probably in the high school level. But probably some of your seniors or some of your senior officers, they've been elected as by their peers as their representatives. To chime in and to listen to them too. So I think that the key thing for right now is to listen, empathy, not sympathy, but empathize and say, we understand it. So then what you do on the other side is you sprinkle in a few things. When I'm reading my emails it's Susie Jones's time to go get the food at such a place. Well, it really doesn't cost much someday at the bus and say, we're buying the faculty initiative, on us. We know you're having a hard time, and we'll have something catered or something. I don't know if that affects your food goes long. And do little things like that. But the main thing is to be out there. The administration has their door open, and you're walking the hallways, and you're listening and listening and listening, and letting them know you're listening. That's because this is because again, I think personally that we're going to reach a time. This is on TV. I think we're going to reach a time if this doesn't let up. We're either going to say to the health department, screw it, we're just going to go. We're just going to run education with it, but it should be. Or you're going to start saying, what are we going to do? Are we going to go into summer school? Or because we're expected to take care of these 10 pounds of potatoes, and we can't send people out there that they only have 8.5 pounds of potatoes and say you're a senior or you're a junior or you're a 5th grader or you're kindergarten. So, and I guess I've probably said enough. But it's all about the culture building your culture, and the top dogs are open and listening to everybody. Because I'm certain my teachers have great ideas, and they're probably baffled just as we are. They don't know what to do with it. So. But at least you understand that they don't know. And they understand you don't. You're at a crossroads too, so that we're all in this together.
And you guys probably do this, but beyond how are you today, maybe somebody has an issue with a health issue in their family or their extended family. Well, how is that going? How is, if somebody's affected with COVID, how's that going? Or, you've got 3 little kids. How are you juggling everything okay? Is there anything that we can do to help you? To touch on the personal.
Well, we talked about ed team today, and we said our problem is we're all problem solvers, so we said, okay, what can we do to,
And who's asking you if everything's
we don't
okay?
have, well, I'm fine, so it's okay. But no, we said ed team, and said, we always try and solve problems, but we don't know how to solve this one,
But that's our job for you too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Our job for you is to ask you, what tools, what materials, what do you need to make your job successful?
I think what we're saying is we need more input.
We gotta be open.
Yes, we need it from the staff, we need it from the
Because
parents.
we're all in this lifeboat, and we don't know how long it's gonna be until the Coast Guard comes to pick it up.
I do think, though, that is the separate issue from the recognition. I think recognition we have to talk about tonight and start, I'm seeing staff people shake their heads. Recognition is something we can do some recognition without gathering more information. There are things we can do that don't cost very much money.
But giving staff voice, do you want some teachers to come to the 19th board meeting, on the November 19th board meeting, to have a rotation of them?
It was just a thought.
I don't know, I mean, if you want to hear from, because it's a diverse group, and there's different pockets of people, how they feel,
Right, I mean, I don't think there's any one, if you're looking for recognition, I mean, you can do a wide range of, it doesn't have to be money, I mean, it can be a lot of different things, but.
We could write.
And I don't think everyone's gonna be happy with everything. One person may say, I want Sunny's pizza, and somebody else may say, I like breakfast. I mean, so I'm just.
Personal notes.
Or whatever, I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
using that
Yeah,
as an example. They
you
may
can't
be
please
personal.
everybody, but
Personal notes are very powerful.
personal notes.
Yeah, handwritten note from,
A handwritten note from the school board, from school board members.
And I haven't, I'm new on this. I think that's the administration's job to send notice out, not the school board.
Well, and I'm pretty sure we're all doing it.
I know, and I may have this wacko from, years of working with boards, but the board, the CEO or the superintendent is the board and the residents. I know people go, you're the ones the board residents. So you represent us. So you do that. They know, they can know, and you can indicate how we're concerned and all that type of stuff. I mean, like, determining if we're gonna give out lunches or whatever, or do anything right now. To me, that's not a board decision, that's administration's decision. And recognizing the board thinks it's a good idea, go to it.
Cindy, you had some idea, maybe you and Dick had ideas, or somebody had ideas coming out of that.
I think it's difficult to recognize an individual when all the individuals are equally affected. I think my opinion is that I think the Friday lunches are great because it gives people an escape from the situation. And I think it's important, something like maybe a drawing or a lottery or something, a special event that happens that takes people's mind off of the situation, gives them something else to concentrate on for just a few minutes or whatever, and it's done on a regular basis. And you don't have to recognize, because recognizing sometimes, well, I do just as much as, why didn't I get recognized? Well, I think we just need an escape from the situation. That's just my opinion.
Well, something that you could do, John Ashley announced Tuesday night that Donald Driver was going to be the keynote for WASB. Wouldn't it be great to have an opportunity for all of our staff to hear Donald Driver? He's very motivational, he's very positive, and probably 95% of the people like hacker-related stuff. You know, that's something that wouldn't cost any money because all these are going to be recorded. So, you know, you could have everybody get together for lunch on Friday and do the Donald Driver speech. Simple, but, you know, like you're saying, that takes your mind off.
Right, I think they need some, just for a brief time period, an escape from
Yeah,
pressure. And not only the staff, but also the students
yeah,
as
yeah.
a group. Sometimes that's difficult in high school, but, you know, in elementary, you know, it's a weird situation for some of these students. If you just had something that they could just escape from.
Yeah.
Well, they got homecoming this upcoming week, and they,
Right.
the plan the high school staff has in middle school elementary, it's different than other years, but it's pretty decent, you know?
Yeah.
I think in
It's making the
elementary,
best what it can be.
I think in elementary, they get those things done. They've got the homecoming thing this week, and they're
Right.
gonna be doing some activities out at the Echo Lodge. That's an escape from the school.
They
from
also
the
get an
Echo.
escape every other day. I mean, the element, I'm just saying.
Right, I know what you
They,
mean.
Kyle, in answer to your question, whether or not we need to rotate staff, I don't want to micromanage, as Jerry said. I mean, we're responsible and accountable to you and the taxpayers. You're responsible for your staff. What I did appreciate from that YouTube video is that that's the norm, is that they have a teacher that comes to every board meeting and just gives kind of an update as to, from a teacher's perspective on everything. I mean, and not just COVID. You know, we just happened to see the YouTube where she was talking about, you know, the impact of COVID, but that could be a future decision later on in terms of teacher voice. And we talked about the student. We used to have a student come and present and hear the student's voice. But those are things we can, you know, discuss later.
Well, we do have the meet and confer every quarter, and we had 2 staff members show up, you know. I mean, I don't know, last time when you were there, Keith, we had 6 maybe?
Well, yeah, but 4 of them are maintenance.
Maintenance, right.
You know, so I mean,
Right,
there
right.
are 2 teachers and 4 maintenance. And
Right. Because the last thing I want to do is assign me to come to Thursday night board meeting at 7 o'clock. Ooh, had a long week already so far. Now you think we come to a meeting at night to tell you about how tough my work week was. Well, you know, beat a dead horse on that, right?
Do the teachers meet in groups? Like, do the elementary teachers all, I mean, like, you know, you have departmental structures, departments meet as groups with their department. How's that?
Yeah, 4K through 1st grade meets as a pod, and 2nd through 5th grade meets as a pod. Middle school's their own group, then high school's their own group. And then sometimes they'll meet science department, and it'll be all the science, you know, sometimes departmental, but sometimes by age group in which they teach. The high school's been meeting quite a bit when it came up with Model 4, and then when they've been planning homecoming. It's not a whole high school, but it's parts. And Mr. Hills meets with his elementary pods every other week.
Any suggestions from the admin team, Kyle? Were there some on here that stood out to the admin team as kind of the big ones?
Well, we kind of talked about spontaneous, you know, doing something that just to surprise them a little bit, you know, something like that.
I think
Team building, we kind of, it was brought up, and then it was kind of like, well, that's another task for them to do, or making them get together, and then some people don't feel comfortable in large groups, so it's kind of, this isn't the time for that. But the other ones on the list, we kind of thought, well, that could work, you know.
that I hear so much about people wanting to wear blue jeans to work. A pop-up every other week, okay, we get Thursday is an extra jeans day this week. It's gonna make some of those people really happy.
We're doing one at the end of every month right now. I mean, I don't know, yeah, I mean,
Oh, is he generous every month?
well, I don't know, I think it's unique, I don't know.
I do, I think it's
Yeah.
unique, so.
I can sprinkle some in, we can work on it. The ad team will kick it around, I got a couple ideas.
The lunches, I think, is great, but how do they manage that when the lunch periods are so staggered that some people have the food when it's?
Well, like
Fresh.
before Christmas every year, we have a few days where there's food in the lunch, and food's kind of touchy right now, you know, and the way you serve it, but we can figure it out. We had breakfast and lunch or dinner for them on in-service parent-teacher conference day, so we'll figure out food.
Grab and go kinds of things.
That's right.
And not making them all come together before school
Right.
and take extra time, it's that
Right.
they can pick it
It's
up
there.
Right.
when they have lunch.
They eat lunch,
Great.
when I was teaching, we'd eat lunch and teacher's lunch, that's still a practice of Zoom.
They don't, well, some eat in the teacher's lunch, but then they find pockets of places where they want to eat too. Depends which group you're in. Yeah.
How's Steve Brad likes that, that they lunch all over the place, like that necessary?
Probably.
Dick, I kind of like the idea of some raffle.
I got an idea for
Random-
that one I can flesh out.
Would that be a one-time thing or something that might?
Oh, no,
occur
I got it.
monthly?
It doesn't have to be a big,
No, I got it.
You got it.
I got it. When you said lottery, I went to bingo and I got it. What am I gonna do?
Well, it sounds like we have some ideas at least to get started with, and then if we could use your suggestions, Jerry, of getting input from people, and maybe even electronically. And they don't have to come to a meeting, they're just.
You know, in the spring, I think it was in the spring, we were gonna try to do a monkey survey of, remember the survey said they wanted more communication with the school board, and we were gonna do a survey that said, how can that happen? What kind of communication are you looking for? And then I think we dropped it because of COVID, we dropped out of school. Maybe a survey like that with those two questions.
A survey or
The
inviting people?
staff survey said you wanted more communication from the board.
Inviting people to
What would
join
that be?
us for 15 minutes at a board meeting, join us electronically. You don't have to come to a meeting. Goodness, everybody's doing Zoom now, so.
If you're gonna have, again, this is mine, if you're gonna invite faculty on a routine basis to the board meeting, I mean, that's have a purpose. And that means they're coming to show off, show and tell something that they're doing in their classes. Get us, to come and just talk normal, openly, to me, is circulating the organization's culture.
You know, we used to have, I think we called them learning sessions where, you know, maybe the English department would come in and talk
Right.
about
I think that'd
their
be great.
degrees.
I think that'd be great, because that gives them a kudos, you know, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
So whether they come in or whether they record something or just do it virtually that night, give those different groups the opportunity to do that if they want to. And from that, we'll hear about challenges that they may be having.
And you've got somebody to work with here.
Would you say, Steve? I couldn't hear you.
The $1,250, you have some money to work with?
Yeah, I figured that out. I think there's some things we do that don't cost a lot.
Right, right. But if you need the money, there is some.
Well, it does sound like the donor wants to know what it is for, to do with it. though.
Yeah, we'll keep in contact with them, absolutely. And I do want someone to get to the kids.
I think we could put this on the agenda for the next board meeting and keep following along.
Well, that was a good discussion tonight. Yeah, maybe we'll have other ideas next time around. I guess we won't have any. We'll leave that to Mr. Lukey, his ideas. we can be of help with those, let us know.
Come on, think Halloween dress as a pumpkin.
They have the dark dress-up days next week for the, and if you see what the high school staff is doing to participate in homecoming, there's a penny war going on, and one of our teachers is gonna have to have their hair done a certain way, and one's gonna have to do a dance routine, and yeah, the teachers are gonna step up for homecoming a little bit, you know, so that'll provide a little break,
A
yeah.
little levity, right?
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, Mr. Juice either got up with a purple mohawk, or Mr. Bear is gonna shave off half his beard, or Mr. Slice is going to grow out his hair for a couple months. So, yeah.
And what are you
whichever one
doing,
loses.
Pat?
It's a high school thing, I wasn't asked to participate. No one asked me to participate, so I would have. Yeah, but no one asked, so that's okay.
Any other discussion on that then?
Where are we with COVID right now? With the student-wise numbers and stuff?
Right now, as of today, we have 2 active cases, no students. And tomorrow, a plethora of the middle school football team comes back into class. So we'll only have a few out on quarantine. We have had no new cases in 8 days.
Very good.
So,
Obviously, the AD model,
AD.
actually AD is so,
yeah, because the last 8, 9 cases we've had, we've only had to send home a couple of extra students from during the school day. Now, the middle school football team, they all got sent home because of the tackling, and you can't do that without being in close proximity. But no, as far as the AB, that is working, and when we start second quarter with more of the high school students coming in that don't have internet, that can use this space here and then filter in. If you go down the hallway, you'll see classrooms that have a number next to their door. That's how many people can fit in that space and still keep their social distancing. So they can fill up more slots. And if it works for high school, we can filter it down to middle school. And then we have a couple of grade levels in the elementary where we can't go beyond 50% because that class is a larger class, and it just doesn't work out. Plus, each room around here is very unique in its size and square footage. So
How's the cleaning going, Kyle?
the aides, you come at 2:30 someday and you watch the hallways get clean. And you could smell the disinfectant around here. The aides take it very seriously. That's been very positive because it's October and it's still going. It was one of those things that you thought might wane off after a month. Every day, they're all over the place. One of our aides was going up to the 4th floor with the handrail, and I told her, no one goes up there. And she said, I'm still doing this every day. So, you know, she's going to a place that no one goes, but she says, well, kid may walk up here and touch it, so I'm going to do it. So, yeah, it's been going really well. And Rock has met with every group, because after the first week, they were using way too much disinfectant, and he had to back off and say, this is how much you need, because they were over applying it, but that's better than under applying it. So, yeah, it's going all right.
If there's nothing else, we have a regular school board meeting on November 19th, unless something would occur before that we need a special meeting. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried at 7:14 PM.